Mobile phone purchasers in Kenya will pay more due to a new tax imposed on the devices as a result of legislative amendments that became effective today, July 1st. In addition to a 50 shilling excise fee on each imported ready-to-use SIM card, the Finance Act 2022 has levied a 10% excise levy on the importation of cell phones. Joining us to discuss further, CEO of Alpha African Advisory, Sanyade Okoli. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you.
Morning.
We're always talking taxes and aviation when we have you on. Well, what do you make of the Kenya decision on these imported mobile phones, the excise duty?
I was doing a bit more digging on it, and I thought it was interesting to see that certainly the tax on the SIM card was a last-minute amendment.
Wow, how about that?
And I think one thing that always, of course, governments need to charge taxes to raise money, et cetera, but I'm always cautious of taxes that could have multiple negative ripple effects.
Right.
And you're not always certain that the taxes have considered in a holistic manner. And they have joined the dots to say, okay, so I'll tell you, for example, with this tax, in March, the Central Bank of Kenya was saying that due to less than 50% of the Kenyan population having smartphones, their plans for digital currencies would be hampered. So if you increase the tax
then
on
you're going
imported phones, and we say imported phones, but they don't really have a local industry, phone manufacturing industry anyway. So essentially a tax on imported phones is a tax on phones.
Gotcha.
So on the one hand, you're trying to probably increase financial inclusion, which we know that devices are a key way where we are in the pyramid.
Right.
You're talking about digital currencies, but then you're taxing phones at 10%, which is not an insubstantial amount. And then when you layer on VAT, it's actually a higher rise. So.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned local phone production. Does this push the conversation forward that the African continent and different countries should manufacture their own phones? Like, do you think they could ever hand the brand power of the major phone manufacturers around the world?
I think it's less about the brand power because as we see, like with pharmaceuticals or different industries, you could potentially partner with foreign mobile phone producers.
Yeah.
But the question is, do they have the technical expertise? Do they have the necessary infrastructure in place for them not just to produce it, but to produce it at a competitive price point?
Right.
Because think of all the phones being manufactured in China.
Right.
And what price points they're coming into the market at. And how well can we compete? That's the key question.
Gotcha. I want to quickly hop on Egypt. What do you make of the nuclear plans for Egypt and this, Russia-built plant?
Mixed feelings.
Mixed? Okay.
So on the one hand, we know we're trying to move towards clean energy, et cetera. We need power, for, development, etc. But I am one person who's personally a little cautious of nuclear.
Right.
Because we have had accidents in the past. And I'm also conscious that we're in a very unpredictable world with very unpredictable leaders.
Right, who can invade countries at the drop of a hat.
They can do anything. And so when they're playing with something like nuclear doesn't just stay where it's meant to. It kind of goes in the air.
Right.
It gets everywhere. So mixed feelings. I see the need. And I recognize it's the future, and I just hope we're very cautious and put all the mitigants in place. There's always risk.
Right.
As long as it's well managed and everything that is required to keep the risk at the barest minimum is in place, then it has to happen.
Do you I guess understand that because populations are rising and then you've got to have more outlets or for power generation to cater to them. Does that in any way make sense then?
Well, right now, nuclear power accounts for about 10% of electricity. So we expect that to grow.
Right.
So we know it's not just today, it's the future. It's just making sure it's the future very, very safely.
Gotcha. This is being built by the Russians. And, hey, look, Ajaokuta steel plant here in Nigeria, that's built by the Russians. And I know, human rights abuses, they're starting wars. Is there anything to be said, any admiration for the Russian economy and how diverse they are? Wheat, tech, these are Russians
admit,
are built.
2022, I struggled to express great admiration for the Russians at this particular time. I know there are lots of tensions. I know the matter is much more complicated, the whole geopolitics.
Yeah.
But for now,
I got you. But they're everywhere. They're exporting gas to Europe. They're selling oil.
Or not.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Very quickly, touchy subject, I know, but the Amazon decision to limit LGBTQ searches in the UAE. I mean, they said, hey, look, we have to comply with the rules of countries. What's your take on that?
Touche.
Yeah?
If you're operating in a country, you do have to comply with the local laws and regulations. There's no way about it. And then you could argue that, oh, well, they should exit. But Amazon is a business.
Right.
They're not a not-for-profit activism group.
Right.
And if you think about it, in about, I think, 2017, they acquired the largest local online retailer, Souk.com, for about $580 million.
Yeah,
they're not about to just walk
throw
away.
That money away.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's the local laws.
Actually, on a related note, Amazon, speaking of purchasing, they're planning on getting into South Africa, Nigeria, a number of African nations. You think the local e-commerce companies here and in different countries where Amazon is coming, you think they should be worried?
Oh, of course, I would be of course I'd be worried. People sit here and already order from Amazon and get it to our homes. It's just that the delay. So if Amazon is here, of course, it's going to eat their lunch.
So, but do they have a chance to compete? Is there a chance for local e-commerce firms to compete
Were
with Amazon?
I an e-commerce firm right now, I'd be positioning myself for an acquisition.
Oh, really?
And hey, I can advise them on that.
One more question. I just want to go back to Kenya very quickly. Do you think that tax reduces the amount of, phone imports that will come in? Do you think that's going to curb or impact how many phones going forward if the tax goes through?
Okay, let's look at it this way. Mobile phones, it's not an inelastic product.
Right.
So if the price goes up, demand will go down. And if demand goes down, then the way to make sure that you have that supply-demand equilibrium is to reduce the imports. The extent is difficult to say. Yeah. But yeah.
Sanyade Okoli, CEO, Alpha African Advisory. Thanks for talking to us about Kenya, about Egypt, about the UAE and Amazon, and we'll have you back to see how Amazon does when they do enter these regions.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us.